In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your wheel bearing. So let's get the wheel off and get started. Let's remove the wheel, take off this cap if you have one, use a pry bar or a screwdriver, just be gentle not to damage it or the wheel. Set it aside and then use your 22mm socket and remove all 8 of your lug nuts. Remove the wheel. Now we have to remove these 3 T27 Torx bolts so that the locking mechanism off the hub can come out. And to do that, I like to sometimes take a pick. These are pretty clean inside, so it's fine, but a lot of times they'll get buildup of debris in there. So I take a pick and clean out so that my socket can seat itself properly all the way. Otherwise, you run the risk of stripping the head of the bolt, and that is never fun. But basically, remove all 3 of them, and then we can pull this locking mechanism out of the way. Slide this out. Just has a rubber O-ring that sometimes can get a little stuck in there. There it is. You can use a 21mm socket. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking off the whole bracket with the caliper as an assembly. It'll be a lot easier to manage that way. Okay, this one's off. Leave it in a few threads so that it holds the whole bracket and caliper while I take this one off. Now be careful because these are heavy. Take off the top bolt. Finish removing the bottom. Take this off, set it up right on top. And now with the caliper off, let's go ahead and remove the rotor. If yours is stuck on there, mine's pretty new, but if yours is stuck, just hammer in between the lug studs. Make sure you don't hit the lug studs, and that should break it free. Next, I want to remove the tie rod. To do that, we have to get this cotter pin out of here. It might not come out, but if it does, that would be great. If it doesn't, like this one's pretty rotted. I'm just going to cut it flush, and then we'll have to get this this castle nut cover off of here because the nut is actually underneath. So I've been spraying this with rust penetrant, hoping to break it free, but I don't think that's happening. Yeah, this just disintegrated. So I'm going to cut it flush, and we will remove it as is. We'll figure the rest out later. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to reuse this locking cap for the nut, just because I'm going to have to kind of break it and bend it out of the way. But as long as the cotter pin is in there, it should be good. Okay, just clean off the threads a little bit. Give this the best chance it has at coming off. 21mm socket. I'm going to leave this on a few threads so that when I take the tie rod out of here, it doesn't fall down completely. There we go. Grab a hammer, hit the knuckle right here. That's going to break the tie rod free from the knuckle. There we go. Take the nut off, remove the tie rod. Now if you look right inside of the hub, you'll see that snap ring in there. We're going to have to take that out, so get your snap ring pliers. Here we go. Ooh. That's a tough one. Okay. It's a very tough snap ring, so you're going to have to put some force into it. Just be careful, because if it snaps, it can go flying. Our next problem is going to be the ABS sensor. This one is very rusted, as you can see. I don't want to try to remove it off of the wheel bearing. I think the best way to go in this case is to just remove the wire off of the truck, unplug it, and keep it bolted onto the wheel bearing. That is the best way to go if you don't want to have to buy a new one and potentially drill this hole back out. So having said that, let me show you how to remove it. Follow it up, and on the knuckle, you'll see this 8mm bolt here. Let's go ahead and remove this. Okay. And if you look right here next to the spring, there are 2 more. Remove both of these. Now, thankfully, these did not break for me. Well, I guess I shouldn't speak now. There's one left, but usually they break. As you can see, this sleeve here gets packed with rust, and it snaps right off. If that happens to you, you're gonna have to find a different way to mount these, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna be the issue for us today. All right, wire's free. Pop it off the frame right here, or the front axle. With this open, you can remove the wire, and if you follow it up right over here, we can just unplug it from the main harness. There's quite a bit of sand buildup in there. There we go. Perfect. Now with the 21mm socket, let's remove all 4 mounting nuts that hold the wheel hub bearing onto this knuckle. Spin it the other way so we can get to the other 2 bolts. Now go ahead and use your hammer. The larger the better in this case. Just hammer it side to side, top and bottom, until it breaks free and comes right out. And there we go. Here is your wheel bearing. It comes off with the backing plate. Make sure your ABS cable comes with it. Remove it from the knuckle and set it aside. Our new hub should come with new studs for mounting it to the knuckle. So you want to go ahead and thread those in before anything else. And then we're going to use, well, there are different methods you could use to tighten these. I'm just going to grab it with pliers and tighten it. But you could put 2 nuts here. You could use the double nut method. And that basically, if you tighten 1 nut onto each other, it makes an area for you to put a socket or a wrench on. But like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and use some pliers because on this shanked area, it doesn't have to be perfect. So if we mar up the surface a little bit, it'll be all right. If you do use pliers though, you want to make sure you have good pliers that when you tighten on them, they grab even more. You could use locking pliers if you want, but the only thing you need is to make these nice and tight, because once we mount this with the mounting nuts, it'll actually want to pull the studs out and it'll basically self-tighten at that point. So if you just bottom these out, make them as tight as you can by hand, you should be good to go. Okay, perfect. Now I have both wheel bearings next to each other. Pay attention to how the ABS sensor is routed. Remove the backing plate off of this one, and I'm going to transfer it to the new one. Slide the ABS sensor through, drop it down onto the studs. All right, your wheel bearing should have also come with one of these O-rings that you're going to want to put around the wheel bearing, right at the base of the inside of it. That's how you get a nice tight seal up against the knuckle so that the vacuum can operate correctly. There you go. If you forget this, it will not make a seal, and when you go to engage your 4-wheel drive, it will not auto-engage. You're going to have to go and lock the hubs manually. But either way, you're going to have a vacuum leak, so that's not good. Put it on. Now let's take the wheel bearing, make sure the ABS sensor is at the top, and slide the studs through the knuckle. Press it in all the way. Make sure the ABS wire's not getting pinched. There we go. Move the axle around if needed so it can get into the seal there. Okay, the wheel bearing is bottomed out all the way. Let's put the mounting nuts on. Now let's put the 4 mounting nuts on. And let's tighten them up. I'm going to go in a cross pattern, that way the wheel bearing can seat itself properly. Now we have to torque them, which I will also do in a cross pattern for the same exact reason. The torque for this is 133 foot-pounds. I have to spin this a little bit. This lower one while I'm at it. Okay, last one. And now just double check them all. All right, tight. Now we have to put on the snap ring. You should have a new one, but if for some reason you don't, if yours is in good condition, you can reuse it. Okay, it's almost on, so what I'm going to do now is take a pry bar and just push it into place. There we go. That just fell into place all the way around. Now let's plug in our ABS sensor. Make sure it clicks, and then just go down the line and re-secure it everywhere where it needs to be secured. Re-secure these over here. Put some anti-seize on the bolts. That way they hopefully don't rust even more than they already did. Last one right up here. All right, ABS wire is secured. At this point, I'd like to put anti-seize on the hub surface so that the rotor doesn't seize up on it. Try not to get it too much on the studs. Now make sure the mounting surface of your rotor is clean. I have a new rotor, so I don't have to worry about that. Now we have to get the old gasket off of this four-wheel drive locking mechanism for the hub. The easiest way to do this is to take a razor blade, go all the way around, just peel it off. Make sure you get all of the remaining gasket off. Right here where it's got the dowel pin, I'm gonna have to cut it, I think, unless it wants to peel off. Okay, there you have it. Pull it up, and the surface looks in very good condition. I'm going to scrape off the rest of this goo that was left behind by the gasket. You can use a wire brush if needed. I'm going to add a little bit of grease to the inner part here and a little bit to the outside, just so I can have some fresh grease coating all these gears here. You don't need a lot. And with this clean, if you don't have a new gasket, I don't, unfortunately, you can just use a tiny bit of gasket maker and goop it around the bolt holes. Make sure you go on the outside and around these divots here, and you should be all set. Nice thin layer, that's all you need. In this case, it's actually easier if I apply it with my finger. Now let's slide this in. Make sure the splines line up. Press it on all the way, and then you just have to locate the dowel pin with one of the holes. Once you do, you can press it on all the way. The O-ring seals up. Let's bolt it. Start on the 3 bolts. Let's bottom them out, and then you just make them snug. These don't really take a lot of torque to tighten down, so once you bottom them out, just give them a little extra, and it should be all set. Okay. Put the tie rod back through the knuckle. Put the nut on. Let's tighten it up. Torque it to 85 foot-pounds. All right. Put the cotter pin through. There you go. Put your cotter pin through and bend it over to lock it in. Let's bring the caliper over and remount it. I have my bolts ready. That way I can bolt it up as soon as it lines up because it's pretty heavy. Now tighten these up and torque them to 166 foot-pounds. And 2. All right, let's get the wheel back on. Put on all 8 of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and then we'll torque these in a cross pattern to 165 foot-pounds. And don't forget about this cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.